Hi everyone. Today is September 18th, 2022. I had to look up for that. I wasn't ready. Yesterday we talked about. Let me show you the fountain first. Yesterday we talked about Matthias and Warbeak making it back up to the sparrow's nest. Alright, flipping you right back. Everyone ready? There we go. Getting you situated. Alright. Let's put our gloves on and talk. We got some new gloves. A passionate viewer suggested them, and I agreed. They look cool. Thank you, passionate viewers. We have cooler gloves now. We look cool. Bada boom. Alright, Matthias just got captured. They put him in a choker and a collar, and that's not really what you should do to someone. Matthias learned the hard way that a collar should go on the wrist, if anywhere, not on the neck. If you're being humane. Now we're talking to Matthias, and he's speaking with Dunwing, Warbeak's mother, and King Bullsparrow's sister. Dunwing had guessed that Matthias had gone to the king's chamber for other reasons than to gain his freedom. This was a very wise mother bird. He decided to put all his cards on the table. Dunwing listened. I want to tell you a story, he said. It was all about the mice who lived in Redwall Abbey beneath us, and of one mouse in particular, Martin the warrior. The sparrow listened intently as the young mouse unfolded the story of Redwall Abbey and the part that he was playing in its hour of need. When Matthias had finished his tale, Dunwing saw the truth of it in his open face. She drew close and said quietly, Matthias, Dunwing knew. First day you come here, I see you wear belt. It all same thing behind chair in King's room. But why? Matthias interjected. Again, Dunwing silenced him. Young mouse, sit still. Now me tell you story. Many time ago, before my mother was egg, king named Bloodfeather. He steal sword from North Point. Sword make a sparrow folk proud, brave fighters, strong chicks, and much worm food to eat. Sword hanging court of sparrow. Feather die. You know how? King Bull Sparrow become king. My husband Great told me this before he died. King Bull Sparrow wear warrior sword. Case be too heavy. Leave case inside room. Beck a chair. Carry sword in claw feet. King Bull, he much show off. Dig worm with sword. My husband go long with him. One day they hunt in moss flower trees. Giant worm come. One with poison teeth. All the time say Asmodeus. Like that. Bull Sparrow drop big sword. He scared of poison teeth. Giant worm curl around sword handle. King Bull Sparrow, he ordered my husband Greytail to get sword back. Greytail try, but worm bite with poison teeth. He hurt bad, but fly back to court with King Bullsparrow. They leave sword and moss flower with giant worm. My husband die. King Bullsparrow say hurt in startling fight. Not true. Greytail tell me before he die. Warbeak still egg. Not know how father die. Matthias watched sympathetically as Dunwing fought back her tears. Gently he patted the widowed sparrow. Great tail be mighty warrior to face poison teeth alone. You glad Warbeak be his egg chick? Dunwing smiled through her tears. Matthias be good mouse. They followed in embarrassed silence. Matthias spoke half aloud. So it seems my quest has been in vain. But what of the scabbard? Scabbard means sword case, Dunwing inquired. Matthias nodded. Me tell about sword case, Dunwing said bitterly. King Bullsparrow be frightened to tell rest of Sparrow he lose sword, huh? He not no great tell me, but I watch King Dunwing know. Bullsparrow still pretends sword in case. That is he that way he stay king. If I tell her he kill me in Warbeak, this I know. Someday Warbeak my chick be queen. She have royal blood. The sparrow folk be better, be happier. Bull sparrow rule for now. Huh, loose heart, loose sword. No good crazy bird, Bull sparrow. The night, as he settled down to sleep in Dunwing's nest, Matthias had a good deal to reflect upon. So King Bull has lost the sword to a giant worm with poison teeth. Matthias knew the description fitted only one thing: a snake. Poison probably meant it was an adder. He'd never seen an adder nor any other type of snake. At Redwall, he had learned of snakes from others. They spoke of the adder as if it were a reptile that was a half legend, half nightmare. It was said that even Father Abbot himself would flatly refuse to treat a snake, no matter how bad its condition might be. Luckily, they had never been caused to. There had never been reports of an adder in the area of Mossflower. That was why most creatures but wise ones like Constance, the abbot, and old Methuselah assured everyone that the adder was cold, deadly fact. They said that in all the world there was nothing more feared: the strong coils, hypnotic eyes, and poison fangs. Matthias shuddered. It sounded even more fearsome. Excuse me. Gotta rub my eye. Fearsome than Clooney the Scourge. How could a mere mouse take a sword from an adder that Dunwing had described? The one that said, Asmodeus. Matthias tried to put it from his mind. Gradually, sleep overtook him. You come quick, Mouseworm. King want to see you. Rough Claw sees Matthias dragging him from the nest, only half awake. It was the two sparrow warriors, Battlehawk and Windplume. They lugged Matthias off without further explanation, tugging cruelly at his lead. The last things he saw before he was pulled into the darkness of the court were pale, worried faces of Dunwing and Warbeak. He shouted to them, rest assured, "Don't worry, I'll be alright, take care of yourselves." Battlehawk hit Matthias in the face with stiff bony wing. "Mouseworm, shut beak or me kill you." "Not before I see your king, you won't," the young mouse retorted. Battlehawk aimed a kick at him, but Windplume deflected it. "Leave mouse alone. You kill him, king kill us." Windplume grinned at Matthias. "Mouse, cheeky, but brave, like Sparrow Warrior." Sometimes you have to have an attitude to get anything done. I'll tell you guys a story. in a page. King Bullsparrow had finished napping. Something was disturbing him about the captive the captive mouse. He had been too busy guzzling candied chestnuts to let it bother him. But now that he was wide awake, it hit him like a ton of bricks. The worm's belt. He had taken Dungwing a single glance to recognize he had finally drawn on had what had taken Dunwing a single glance to recognize had finally dawned on the King. Matthias' belt was the same color as the case behind his own chair. A broken piece of mirror reflected in the moonlight was only illumination in the King's court. He dismissed his two warriors to wait outside. The King of the Sparrowfolk sat staring at the young mouse in silence. Matthias stood his ground bravely, not knowing what to expect, but Bull Sparrow stood up. He strutted it out in front of him, out of Matthias, and then around behind him. Matthias felt his belt gripped from behind by strong claws. The King whispered close in his ear, "Wear a mouseworm, get belt." Matthias swallowed hard. He tried to act casual. "Oh, you mean this belt? Mouse got belt from many long time ago. Not no worm me get." Thump. Matthias hit the floor as King shoved him fiercely in the back. "Mouse lie, King Bull no fool worm. Where you get, tell." As he shouted madly, the sparrow pulled at the belt. Matthias knew he was facing death with the insane ruler in one of his lunatic rages. He must think fast. "No got more candy nest nuts," the young mouse cried. "Please, King, give Mouse Sword some mouse words. No more candy nest nuts. Me give King this belt, then he let a mouse go free home." Matthias's pleas had the desired effect upon the Mad King. He sat in the big chair, glinting cunningly. "Sparrow law say King must kill a mouse worm, but me, good majesty, no kill a mouse worm. Give belt to King." Matthias unbuckled the belt and handed it over to King Bull, fondled it, then fastened it on himself. As he admired the belt strutting in front of the broken mirror, the sparrow spoke in a normal voice. "Nice. Good belt. Mouse know of a great sword?" Instantly, Matthias was on his guard. One wrong word might spell death for Dunwing or Warbeak. He must affect ignorance to allay the King's suspicion. "Oh, Matthias, that good... Oh, Majesty, that good belt make King look fine, like mighty warrior. Not look good on mouse." Bull King appeared flattered. He preened himself, then asked the question again in a coaxing tone. "Surely Matthias know of the great sword." In spite of his dangerous predicament, Matthias was inwardly assumed at the King's use of his own name. Slumping to the floor, he sat with his head between his paws, the picture of dejected innocence. "Oh, mighty King, Mouse not have no more candy chestnuts. Know about sword thing, but have belt now. Me die if not soon go free. Please let a mouse worm go home." Matthias' shows of pathos seemed to cheer the King. He tucked his wing tips into the belt. Okay. That had fooled the mouse worm. Excuse me. Matthias' show of pathos seemed to cheer the King. He tucked his wingtips into the belt that he had fooled the mouse worm into giving him. Ha! He had eaten all the mouse nuts too. Feeling no end of a fine bird, he gave a sharp whistle that brought his two warriors on the double. "Look at this mouseworm," he scoffed. He not happy that I spare him. You take mouseworm back to my sister Dunwing. Tell her king say, take care of Mouseworm. Give me good gifts. Candy, nut, belt. Maybe Mouse find more gift for good majesty who let live. Take away now. Must sleep go on. As Matthias was dragged out off once more, he pretended to cry out in distress. This caused Bullsparrow much amusement. He waved a wing in farewell, calling out to the prisoner, get good sleep, Mouseworm. Think a way to get more gifts from Majesty. Ha 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 ha. The two warriors and the nearby fledgling, who was half awake, laughed obediently with their king. Matthias thanked his lucky stars that he had once again come out alive. Had he refused to give the belt, he would have surely had died. Anyhow, he reflected it was only a temporary loan, as he planned on stealing the scabbard from Bullsparrow. Why not the belt to go with it? We can see a picture of Martin, the warrior. Chapter 17. Basil Staghair and Jess Squirrel were as thick as thieves. They were not helping them. They were not helping with the defenses. Excuse me. I thought I was reading something mischievous, and I was reading ahead, and I wasn't. So give me a second to reread that. Basil Staghair and Jess Squirrel were as thick as thieves. When they were not helping with the defense, they could be found in odd corners whispering together. Nobody knew what their conversations were about or what exactly they were plotting, but with the fastest runner and the champion climber of Mouseflower, it was sure to be something spectacular. Cornflower and Silent Sam watched them stealing off at lunchtime to continue their conspiracy beneath the trees in the orchard where they would not be disturbed. What do you suppose your mom and Basil are up to, Sam? Asked the young field mouse, whose curiosity was aroused. Silent Sam shrugged his tiny shoulders and buried his head in the lunchtime milk bowl. He drank in a noisy, enjoyable infant fashion. Whenever Jess was planning, Sam's complete approval seemed... Whatever Jess was planning, Sam's complete approval, simply because his mother could do nothing wrong as far as he was concerned. Basil stretched comfortably in the shade while Jess sat out in the sunlight, her tail curled overhead, acting as a sunshade. Ah, this is the life. Jess, me old climber. Basil yawned cavernously as he fed crumbs to the ants. Plenty to keep the inner folk satisfied. Scorching June weather, and a top-hole billet for snoozing. What? Jess nibbled on a wedge of cheese. Aye. And it's up to the woodlanders to keep us to keep it that way, Basil. What sort of neighbor would this be of yours? Would this be for youngins like Sam to grow up if Clooney and his lot were to take over? Basil harumphed through his military-style whiskers. Good grief. Doesn't bear thinking about, old girl. Those rats and vermin, an absolute shower of yahoos and cads. Bad influence, you know. They both sat, nodding in agreement. Faces full of grim righteousness, uttering die-home truths and generally working themselves into a fine state of indignation. Huh, Clooney the Scourge. A bully and a baggart if I've ever clapped eyes on one. Yes, A robber too to boot. Fancy stealing Martin's tapestry from the mice. What harm do what harm have they done to him? It strikes me that it do the Father Abbot's heart good to see the tapestry back in its rightful place again. Indeed it would, and the troops would take new heart. Ha! What a blow it would be to that feller Clooney and his filthy band of robbers. Basil bounded up and ate the last of Jess's cheese decisively. Well, what are you waiting for? Come on, Jess, you old hazelnut waffle. Up and at 'em. Forward the fluff. Jess flexed her climbing paws and bared her teeth angrily. Just try to stop me. Just you try and stop me, she chattered furiously. Without telling anyone of their intentions, the two expert campaigners slid out secretly by one of the small doors in the abbey walls. Soon they were stealing through the green noontide depths of Mossflower Wood. Clooney was up and about. His first decision was to put the horde through their places. He had decided that they'd become fat and lazy from lying about in the churchyards while he was confined to bed. Now that he was on the mend, there were going to do some drill. Standing on a tombstone, he leaned slightly against his standard and viewed the army in training. Panting and sweating, a large mob of rats dashed to and fro, burdened by the battering ram. The captains, hoping to curry favor with Clooney, harangued and the helpless runners. Hangarood. Or Haringengu. Your feet up, you lively scum. Come on. Lift that ram properly, you idle devils. Practice tunnels were being dug willy-nilly, owing to the lack of communication between rats and other species. Ferrets, weasels, and stoats, their faces smeared with moist, dark earth, popped out of the ground in the oddest of places. Unaccustomed to such strenuous labor, they would stop digging as they pleased, basking in the sun until they were trodden by columns of marching rats. A squabble would ensue until they became aware of a watchful eye of Clooney. They would be heads down, resuming marching, getting back to tunneling. Either side of Clooney on the tombstone stood Darkclaw and Kill Clooney. Scornfully watching the chaotic maneuvers, the warlord would criticize first one, then the other for shortcomings of the creatures they represented. Both squirmed under the lash of Clooney, the chief's tongue. Darkclaw looked away at the way the rats are marching. Idiots! They look like a flock of lambs in a village school outing. Haven't you taught them anything? Oh, hellfire, that stupid lot with the battering ram have just marched straight into a tunnel. Kill Clooney. Tell those morons of yours not to tunnel on the parade ground. Just a minute. What weasel? That weasel there. The one grinning all over his face like a drunken duck. Lock him up without food or water for 3 days. That'll wipe that daft smile off his face. Well, what a fine pair of commanders you two turned out to be. I can't turn my back for a minute, and you've got your hands behaving like mad frogs in a bucket. Clooney ranted and fumed at the animals under his banner. They were going for a march. Sweat, dirt, carry, drill, and tunnel. Until they performed his satisfaction, sloppy, idle lot, he showed them now that he was back. He, he'd keep them at it all day and all night if need be. Clooney was Clooney had taken a vow while he lay injured never again would he allow himself to be thwarted by mice and woodland creatures. And at that precise moment, it was two of those same creatures who stood at the fringe of Mossflower Wood, spying across the common land where Clooney's army was exercising. But for the gravity of the situation, Basil and Jess would have seen the chance for many a good laugh. What a difference between the antics of this rabble and the way in which the Abbey defenders were going about their business of training. Jess observed that it was a contrast between slaving under a tyrant and voluntary cooperation that arose from determination and good fellowship. The paths of the two comrades were well laid, Basil decided. The plans. That now was a good time as any to put them into operation. He turned to Jess. Well, you old tree jumper, let's see if we can baffle the blighters with science. They shook paws and ventured out onto the common land. Basil Staghair, camouflage expert and foot fighter, in the lead. Jess Squirrel, champion climber and pathfinder, close behind him. They were like twin cloud shadows drifting silently across the land. Clooney had climbed down from his perch on the tombstone. He stood by the churchyard fence, intent on trying out the whipping powers of the fearsome tail upon a few rats that had dubbed the Awkward Squad. Flexing his long scourge-like tail, he gave a few experimental swishes and cracks as he shouted commands. Left wheel! I said left wheel! You buffoons, you there! Don't you know the difference between your left and your right? Hold out your left paw. The frightened rat stuck out what he fervently hoped was his left paw. Swish! Crack! The unfortunate rodent screamed and danced about with the stinging pain of the thick whip-like tail. Clooney foamed in ill-tempered. Blockhead! That's your right paw! Now hold out your left paw, stupid. I'm going to make an example out of you. This slot won't forget. A voice interrupted him. Tut tut! Officer striking enlisted creature. Bad form, old chap. Thumping bad form. A voice interrupted him. Tut tut, officer. Striking an enlisted creature. Bad form, old chap. Thumping bad form. Clooney whirled around. Just out of reach, across the fence, stood Basil Staghair in the at ease position. I can't keep my feet together, so I'm not at ease. I'm just moving around. You have to keep one foot stationary, not moving. Clooney goggled in thunderstruck silence at the audacious Basil, who merely scowled in mock censure. Now that sort of thing one expects from a horde commander. What? I'd have you blackballed from the church premise. So, you got to think of pirates when you think of that, and weights. It's a phrase that, because the hares, they live on the coast, the Long Patrol and the Badger Lords. And to be blackballed is to put on. There's two ways to do it. You can load the chain with the prisoner attached to it and have the ball go in the cannon, fire it, and then off into the sea they go. And it'll probably rip your leg off and you'll die of, like, I don't know. It's awful. Moving on. The other one is the same way, but a little different. And we won't get into it because this is a children's stream. Clooney's voice was a strangled yell. Get him! Grab that spy! I want his head! Basil chuckled. What's the matter? Isn't your own head good enough? No, I don't suppose it is. Ugly looking brute, aren't you? A mob of rats had scrambled through the fence to catch Basil, but it was like trying to catch smoke upon the wind. He was there and gone. From her hiding place, Jess tried hard to stifle her giggles. After several exhausting minutes, it became apparent that neither the rat nor the dozen or so panting ferrets, weasels, and stoats who had joined the chase on Clooney's orders were remotely close to apprehending the strange hare. Gripping the standard in bloodless claws, Clooney climbed over the fence of the common land. The comrade's scheme was beginning to work. Basil bobbed up alongside Clooney. What ho, old rat! Showing a bit of initiative. Never asked the troops to do what you can do yourself. And all that. Splendid. He dodged playfully out of reach. Clooney snarled and went after him. Basil ducked and weaved, drawing Clooney further out onto the common. All eyes were on the two figures. It made it easier for Jess to change hiding places as she followed them. Clooney pursued dodgily, making no sudden moves, waiting for the hare to get overconfident so that he could strike. The soldiers moved about 20 paces behind the action. Clooney had warned them he wanted a one-to-one confrontation. Clooney jabbed the banner at Old Basil. The hare inwardly rejoiced. They were getting closer to Mossflower Woods. Soon Jess would make her move. Meanwhile, he must draw the fat rat further away, avoiding the stabs of the banner pole and swift whip-like slashes of the tail. Basil realized that it was no clumsy rat he faced. He chanced a sudden glance to check if Jess was nearby. As he did, his left leg shot out into a pothole. It twisted, and Basil fell heavily onto the ground. Clooney charged, and he lifted the banner and slammed it down on the hare's unprotected hair. Basil twisted quickly to the side. Jess, now, he yelled. As Basil shouted, several things happened at once. Jess came out of nowhere like a whirlwind. The banner thudded to the earth where Basil's head had been a fraction of a second before. Basil freed his leg as Jess leaped like a salmon. Midair, she ripped the tapestry clean off the standard in one go. Clooney bellowed in rage. His followers came surging across the common to aid him. Basil leapt to his feet and hobbled gamely in front of Clooney, shielding Jess. The squirrel faced about trying to distract Clooney. Basil winced as he called out to his friend, "Run for it, Jess, I can hold him off." She ducked a blow from Clooney's tail. Not likely. If you stay, then so do I. Basil limped about, keeping himself between Clooney and Jess. You stubborn beast, he yelled. Will you get going? The horde is almost upon them. With a quick flash, Jess grabbed the end of Clooney's tail. She swung him with all her power, throwing him off balance, sending him crashing into the front rows of his horde. Jess threw Basil's paw about her shoulder. Come on, Basil. Head for the woods. We'll make it together. What a good friend. Both creatures dashed from the common into the depths of Mossflower. Behind them, Clooney's horde was in headlong pursuit, yelling and shouting. As they ran, Jess panted, Here, take this. Give me the decoy. Hurry. Basil snatched the tapestry and reached beneath his tunic and gave Jess the crude replica they had made. They had prepared, in which it was in reality an old dishcloth from Friar Hugo's kitchen. The sounds of the pursuers grew louder. They were gaining now. They were gaining. Now, you drop out of sight, Jess. I'll draw them off. Then you can double back through the churchyard and up the road to Redwall. They will never think of searching along that way. As suddenly as she had spoken, Glass glanced to one side. Basil was no longer there. A breathless military voice whispered from beneath the other growth. Will do, old chum. See you back at the Abbey. Have a good chase now. Cheerio. Master of Stealth. Basil Stag Hair. Camouflage expert. Had gone to Earth. Jess could see Clooney and the horde coming through the trees. She stood and waited until they caught sight of her. She saw Clooney point and shout. Over there! The squirrel! She's the one who's got the tapestry. Get her! Take her alive if you can. Coolly, Jess stood her ground until they were almost upon her. Right at the last second, she went like a blur up the side of a horse. Right at the last second, she went like a blur up the side of a horse chestnut tree, stomping just out of reach. Some of the angles one tried claiming to get at her. Jess merely scrambled forwards. Get down, you nincompoops, Clooney hissed. Try to outclimb a squirrel. See if you can keep near the ground while I think what to do. The rats climbed down. As they did, Jess returned to the slow trunk. She had to buy as much time as possible to allow Basil's escape. Clooney lunged nonchalantly against a tree. Well, squirrel, very clever indeed. I could see someone like you in my army, somebody smart with brains like yours. Clooney also demonstrated his persuasive powers. You take the chief's word. He's looking for a good first officer. Why don't you come down and talk it over? Sure, that lot would be grand. The loot would be grand when we conquer Ouch! The small, green, spiky chestnut still in its husk bounced off the ferocious ferret's head. Jess moved higher to a branch with more plentiful supply. She waved the decoy tapestry at Clooney. Is this what you're after, Ratface? Clooney battled with it to keep his temper. Darkclaw nudged him and whispered, What about that one, Chief? Shall I take troops and start searching for him? No, I'll deal with the other one, the hare, another time. Right now, you're all here in case there's a chance of trapping this one. Jess's keen eyes caught every word the warlord had said. The plan had worked. She threw a hard spiky nut and called to Clooney, Hey, Ratface, do you think you got this one trapped? Ha! I'm about as trapped as a skylark in in the air on a clear day. There's not one of you near me. I know that, Squirrel, Clooney answered. But just think for a moment. If we win the war against the mice, and we will, and I will, you know I've made a vow to kill everyone inside Redwall. Now suppose that you've got someone dear in there. You know what I mean? A mate, a little baby, some family. Clooney dodged a shower of spiky chestnuts hurled down. You filthy murdering scum, shouted Jess. You rotten, loathsome slime. If you come near my family, I'll rip that evil eye of yours right out of your face. Clooney knew he was succeeding with his scheme against the squirrel. No more hard chestnuts, as more hard chestnuts pelted down. Throwing things won't do much good. Listen, I'm a reasonable creature. All I'm asking is you do what it. All I'm asking you to do is think of your family. I haven't got to join us, but if you want. You haven't got to join us if you don't want to. Stay up in the tree forever if you want. It doesn't bother me. All I need is that little scrap of tapestry. It isn't much to ask, is it? Your loved ones will be safe if you hand it over. Jess was about to hurl more nuts and insulting remarks when the form of Clooney's planned on her. The rat was trying to do exactly what she had done. It was a trap. He was making her become careless. The two can play at that game, Jess thought to herself. The horde of soldiers watched the squirrel notice a change come over her. She appeared agitated, gnawing upon her lip, rubbing her paws together. In anguish, she clutched the tapestry. I don't care about the others in Redwall. I've got a husband, small stone. You won't hurt him, will you, Clooney? The warlord detected a snob in the squirrel's voice. No, of course I won't, he said smoothly. All you have to do is let go of that scrap of cloth and let it drift down here to me. The moment you do, your loved one's safety is assured. Believe me, Squirrel, I give you my word and honor. Jess wiped her eyes on the decoy cloth and sniffled piteously as she answered, Well, all right then. If I have your promise that my family will be safe, then you can have this old thing. It means nothing to me. Jess released the piece of material. It drifted down through the branches. Clooney could scarcely restrain himself from leaping for it. Clooney hurried forward, his eyes shining with reverence. He picked up the dish rag gently, offering it to Clooney. Here you are, Your Honor. The lovely thing itself, safe and sound. Avoiding avidly, Clooney snatched the cloth. His eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. He gave a scream of terrible rage. Instantly, his followers scrambled into the bushes as their chief ripped the tapestry into shreds. It's a fake, a copy, worthless trash. From her perch in the trees, Jess watched with grim satisfaction. I, worthless trash, rat just as you are. The real tapestry is back at Redwall by now. You've been fooled. Kill her! Kill the dirty little swindler! Clooney's cry rang out. Before a spear or missile could be thrown, Jess had gone. She darted from tree to tree in artistic speed, far above moss-flower ground and the utmost traces of foliage. The champion squirrel continued her flight in the direction of Redwall Abbey. Sometime around early evening, Jess arrived back, springing lightly from a high elm branch to the parapet of the abbey wall. She could tell the sound of the abbey chattering, and she could tell by the sound of the happy chattering and general jubilation that one more pitcher of Martin was safely back. That once more, Bounding down into the ground, she was surrounded by cheering friends, not the least of whom was Mr. Squirrel, who smothered her with kisses, while their son Silent Sam sat upon her shoulder, dampened her head by patting it lovingly with a well sucked paw. The Woodlanders carried Jess's shoulder high into the dining hall, where sat celebratory hero Basil Staghare. He looked up momentarily at his comrade from behind a staggering mountain of scrumptious food and pointed his leg, which was swathed in hugely tight, extravagant bandage. War wound, Basil muttered as he demolished a. I have a war wound just like Basil Staghare. It's funny. War wound, Basil muttered as he demolished a plate of quince and elder pie. Got to keep the old strength, you know. Lashing of nourishment, only real way to heal an honorable injury. Feed it. What? They both tucked in vigorously, vor- voraciously. Friar Hugo came waddling up, his face a picture of delight. Good creatures, he chuckled. The late rose is starting to flourish anew. Eat to your heart's content. Jess placed her paws on the fat mouse's shoulders. The squirrel's face was a mixture of sadness and concern. Friar Hugo, old friend, brace yourself. I'm the bearer of tragic news. Alarm spread across Hugo's pudgy features. Tell me, Jess, what dreadful thing has happened? Jess spoke haltingly in a broken voice. I fear that Clooney tore up one of your oldest and most venerable dish rags. Alas, Redwall will never see it to wipe another plate. Behind the friar's back, Basil and Sam almost choked with laughter in the middle of an apple cream pudding. Shafts of the evening sunlight flooded Great Hall as old Methuselah worked painstakingly away with needle and thread he was sewing Martin the warrior back into his former position on the corner of the magnificent Redwall tapestry. Excellent chapter. What we got here? It looks like a top-down view of the Abbey. It's like looking up, like if you had a camera and you were taking a picture of an abbey with like a drone or a plane or something like that, and you can see the church. Cool. Okay, I'm grabbing some water. I'm going to show you guys the fountain while you wait. Be right back. Okay, viewers, listeners, feelers, and chatters, I am back. Let's put some gloves on. Let's review what we've been over. We just finished 2 chapters. Matthias is up with the sparrows, so we know that. And Jess and Basil just got back with Martin the Warrior. Then we're caught up. Matthias huddled down deep into Dunwing's nest. He shuddered comfortably, wriggling to get further into the dried moss, down feather, and soft grass. During the night, a wind had sprung up. He peeped out. He peeped over the rim of the nest. It was a gray day of the kind often found at the too brilliant start of early summer. Clouds scudded nose to the two tails across the sky, though it was not raining and the wind was quite warm. Nevertheless, the eaves and roof cracks magnified the sighing and moaning of the vagrant wind, driving the young mouse back to snuggle up once more as he had often done in his own bed in the dormitory. Matthias thought of the neat, cozy little bed, and a wave of homesickness swept over him. Would he ever sleep in it again? A busy flutter of wings announced the mother sparrow's arrival. Matthias moused a sleepyhead. Get up, there are things to be done this day. Matthias stretched and yawned and scratched under the collar. Good morning, Dunwing, he said politely. What things are to be done today? The sparrow settled herself. She looked gravely at the young mouse. Today Matthias escaped Sparrow's court. Me make a plan. King not right to keep mouse prisoner. Matthias was suddenly wide awake. The sparrow had his undivided attention. A plan? What sort of plan? Oh, please tell me, Dunwing. The mother sparrow explained. First, no can go back through loft door. King much angry. Have many great slate pile on door. Stop intruder. Door not open again. Me think. Matthias whistled. Well, the crafty sparrow. But how am I going to get back down? Do you think you could fly me there some way? You're bigger than Warbeak. Then we immediately squashed the idea. Matthias talked crazy. Even Warbeak and Dunwing together not able to do that. Sparrow very light. Maybe strong beak and claws, but wings small. Not like great birds. Fall like stone carrying mouse. Huh. Sometimes even worm too heavy to carry in bits. 2 or 3 journeys. Matthias began to apologize for his ignorance, but the mother sparrow cut him short. Dunwing, think plan. Pay attention now. Me send Warbeak to tell Gate Mouse how you call. Athusala? Good. My chick, she tell me old mouse get big reed squirrel, big plenty climbing rope. When she see you plenty on roof, help Matthias go down. Why, of course, cried Matthias. What a splendid idea. I won't be afraid with Jess to help me down. But what about King and his warriors? If they see, I won't stand a chance. Then we waited impatiently. The next part of the plan, next part of the plan. Pretty soon Warbeak come back and she tell what time squirrel meet you. Good. Then Dunwing whisper big lie fib to other sparrow. It soon spread. Matthias was puzzled. Spreading lies? What good will that do? What good will that do? Dunwing preened her feathers and smiled craftily. Great fib I lie. Me whisper a bit here, there, about big poison teeth. Say him lying hurt down in forest. Look to die, poison teeth have sword with ya. You see. Matthias grazed in admiration at Orbeek's mother. Well, I never. You were going to spread the rumor that the snake has the sword is dying out down in the woods. Amazing. I can picture it now. Bull Sparrow will go chasing straight down there with his warriors. Meanwhile, I'll escape the roof. Dungwing nodded. Matthias, steel belt, sword case, quick fast, climb off roof with a red squirrel. The young mouse could not meet the mother sparrow's eyes. He was overcome with guilt and shame. Dunwing, I'm sorry, how did you guess? The sparrow placed a claw upon his paw. Me know all the time. Matthias mouse not come to bring my egg chick safe home. Come for sword, not get sword. All same, belt, case, belong mice. You must take away. These things trouble for Sparta. Husband dead because of sword. Dunwing glasped Matthias' paw warmly. Dunwing like mouse, you good friend to my Warbeak. Methinks she dead till you bring back. Me help you steal case belt. Matthias was lost for words. He laid his head against the mother sparrow's soft feather, brushing a tear from his cheek. Warbeak came fluttering and bustling. Wind much blow strong. Old mouse say he tell squirrel just, you come out roof when Jost bell ring lunchworm. Squirrel just meet there with climb rope. Matthias scarcely tasted the food that Warbeak had brought back. His mind was focused on the plan. It was extremely hazardous. There would be great danger, not only for himself, but for his sparrow friends. Supposing King Bull took the sword belt and case with him, what if the king left them behind but hid them in a new place? Would Jess be able to catch sight of him? If he would not make it back, if he did not make it out on the roof, what then? There were many things that could go wrong. What would Martin the warrior have done in a situation like this? Matthias decided that Martin would have put on a brave face and trusted his warrior's luck. And that was precisely what he was going to do. Dunwing left the nest an hour before the Joseph bell tolled. Lunchtime, she had to start spreading tale of the snake rumors, where often circulated among the sparrow folk. All it took was a few chosen whispers in the right place. Pretty soon, the court of King Bull Sparrow would be in an uproar. Later, when it all turned out to be nothing, nobody would remember who started spreading the rumor. It had always been the same with the sparrow. Matthias passed a miserable few minutes in the nest with Warbeak. Well, when the false news broke, the young sparrow would have to fly along with King Bull and other sparrow. The two friends might never see each other again. However, there was little time for emotional farewells. Outside, the pandemonium was sweeping the sparrow cohort. Dunwing had performed her task well. A loud drumming like the beating of many wings against the wooden floor filled the air. King Kalawarya! Alawarya! Warbeak murmured. Gotta go now. Me and Matthias mouse again one day. Warbeak undid the collar. It fell from Matthias's neck. Mouse friend, set me free. Now me set you free. Warbeak, go now. Matthias, good. Worm hunt. They shook paw to claw. The hungry mouse said his farewell in the sparrow language. Matthias, look for Warbeak. See someday. You go now. Be brave egg chick. Mighty sparrow warrior, great friend. A swift rush of wings and Warbeak was gone. Matthias kept his head well down inside the nest. He listened as the flapping wings and chirpings of sparrows grew less and less. Finally, there was silence. Dunwing propped her head over the rim of the nest. Matthias, come quick, no time to lose. Together they hurried through the deserted sparrow court. Dunwing knew the mothers in every nest, with small chicks. These birds remained quiet, out of sight, when there were no warriors to defend them. Matthias and Dunwing pushed hastily past the scrap of sacking that was served as a door to the king's chamber, and began their search. The scabbard had gone from the back of the chair. Oh, I knew it, Matthias cried. That sly old bull has taken it with him. Dunwing shook his head. No, me see king go. He no take belt, no case. Search hard. We must find plenty quick. The chamber was so sparsely furnished it required very little searching. Two more pages. Oh! Dunwing fluttered about, but Matthias became discouraged. What's the use? He cried. It's all gone. There's only bits of half-furnished old slates, butterfly wings, that stupid old chair. In his frustration, Matthias gave the sagging armchair a heavy shove. One of the legs collapsed and fell backward, revealing latest strips of hessing on the other side. Dunwing hopped on the upturned chair, twittering with elation. See, look, King hides stuff under old worm chair. Through the cross-latest work, Matthias could see the shrine of black leather and silver. The shine of black leather and silver. Hastily they ripped and tore with beak, claw, and paw. Dust and age-scuffing new stuffing flew everywhere. Matthias triumphantly pulled the scabbard and sword belt free of the wreckage. There was supple, shining black leather, chased and trimmed with the purest silver. The scabbard fit perfectly into the well-made holder on the belt. This was truly equipment which had belonged personally to Martin the Warrior of Redwall Abbey. No time for mouse-stream. You hurry, go quick. Matthias paid full heed to Dunwing's plead. Sweeping the belt and scabbard up, he slung them across the shoulder. I'm with you, Dunwing. What next? The usual way for sparrows to leave the court was to fly. His stomach turned a cartwheel at the prospect he must have to do next. He would have to go on his back, under the eaves, and with nothing beneath him but a heart-stopping void of space, negotiate his way out and around the curving gutter to reach the steep upward sweep of the roof. The first mistake he made was to peep over the edge, over the eaves. Far below the abbey grounds looked like a spread-out pocket handkerchief, the great wall representing its border, like with the blustering, howling wind whipping flat his ear and forcing breath back down his throat. Matthias giddily covered his eyes with a paw. He felt physically sick at the mere thought of it all. Vertigo. They say sometimes if you're on top of something tall and you look down, you feel this sense where the earth is, your eyes can't focus. It's, seems scary. But to calm down, you could count backwards from by 100 by sevens. And we'll do that quickly. 100. 93. 86. 79. 72. 65. 58. 51. 44. 37. 30. 23. 16. 9. 7. And 2. We're going to stop there today. I'm going to tell you guys a story. So, there's a sound that you can make with other people when playing an instrument. The instrument I play is the bassoon. And whenever I work out or I do what I need to for my job, I hear that music playing and me playing that music. And so I, with 8 other bassoonists, we came together and we played a part where we only played half notes, but we played with others and we would only play 8 notes. And on our 6th note, the next bassoonist would pick up the beat and they would say, something along those lines. But the tempo is half notes. So those were a little bit longer and a little bit shorter sometimes. We hit some half notes in between there, though. Would you guys like to hear some water? So, that's my story for the day. I played in an 8 bassoon piece, and we each had our own individual, like, people to turn our music for us while we were doing this. It was insane. It was the coolest thing ever. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and the sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. Our flags unfurled to every breeze, from dawn to setting sun. We have fought in every clime and place where you could take a gun. In the snow of far-off northern lands and in sunny tropic scenes, you will find us always on the job, the United States Marines. Here's health to you and to our corps, which we are proud to serve. In many a strife we fought for life and never lost our nerve. If the Army and the Navy ever looked on heaven's scenes, they will find the streets are guarded by United States Marines. Semper Fi, hoorah. Song gets me all emotional all the time. Alright, everyone. Wishing you all the best, YouTube family, Twitch family, AMP family, and live in Riverside. I'm working on a podcast. I think it's going to be Riverside or AMP. It's between these two. Give me some time. Probably looking about next month in October, Halloween time frame is when we'll have our first episode of that. I'll have a guest with me. Alright. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. I wish you all the very best. I'm going to go check if we're going to have a barbecue today. We might not. Today is the 18th, and it is September, and it is a Sunday, and it is 2022. Have a wonderful day, everyone.